from all over the world. I am Ludovic Guillot, cultural counselor at the French Embassy in Korea, and I am delighted to open Making Lemonade towards a digital future for the arts. It's gonna be an amazing 3-day online festival. I am even more thrilled to greet you all alongside my partners and co-organizers, and even friends, I should say, Marla Stuckenberg, director of the Goethe-Institut Korea East Asia, and also Soyoung Ro, director of Art Center Nabi. During the next 3 days, Making Lemonade Festival will question the impact of digital tools and practices on the creation and distribution of artistic contents on international level. The best experts from France, Germany, and Korea will discuss about how the digital future of culture could look like through a mix of 5 discussions, 6 showcases, and 3 performances. The whole concept emerged from our discussions here in Seoul between Cultural Service of the French Embassy, the Goethe-Institut, and Arts Center Nabi on how to pursue our mission of promoting international arts and culture in a total lockdown world. We were all facing the necessity to reinvent through digital tools our own practice and means of actions. I also wish to address my gratitude to Recto-Verso Festival in Laval and to Judith Guez, the director. Recto-Verso is an established international digital festival that offered us to join them, allowing us to open our discussion to a broader audience. This last partnership sums up the spirit of Making Lemonade. It shows the necessity, maybe more than ever, to share good practices in order to face the global crisis on an international level. I am deeply convinced that these 3 days will bring interesting and stimulating debates, thanks to all our panelists that I would like personally to acknowledge for taking part in the event. I shall now hand the floor to Soyoung Ro, Director of Art Center Nabi. Thank you very much and enjoy those 3 days.
안녕하세요. 이런 멋진 페스티벌에 같이 참여하게 돼서 너무나 기쁘고 반갑습니다. 이 메이킹 레모네이드라는 페스티벌은 한 1년 전 작년 봄이었죠. 모든 게 록다운되고 이제 앞으로 뭘 해야 되지 하고 그런 고민 속에서 주한 프랑스 대사관의 아만다, 그리고 괴테-인스티튜트의 멜라니, 그리고 저랑 셋이서 점심을 먹다가 뭔가 좀 우리가 앞으로의 길을 문화예술이 재밌게 헤쳐나갈 길을 좀 찾아보자 공동으로 해서 작게 시작된 것이 이렇게 커져 버렸습니다. 많은 분들이 참여해 주시고 기꺼이 참여해 주시고 또 이렇게 응원해 주시고 또 함께 모색하고 또 앞으로 그 애프터 코비드 시대를 탐험하는데 같이 동참해 주셔서 너무너무 감사드립니다. 잠깐 모르시는 분들을 위해서 나비에 대해서 잠깐 소개를 드리자면 지금으로부터 한 20년 전에 2000년 설립되었습니다. 설립 초기부터 저희는 디지털 테크놀로지를 항상 염두에 두고 이 디지털 테크놀로지가 앞으로 가져올 세상에 대해서 그리고 이것이 우리 인간의 사고와 또 인간의 사회 조직과 모든 것에 미치는 영향에 대해서 한편으로 생각하면서 또 한편으로는 아티스트를 통해서 새로운 창작을 해가면서 지난 20년을 달려왔습니다. 그러니까 웹이 95년에 태동을 하고 얼마 안 있어서 이제 저희가 개원을 했고 그 다음에 웹이 생기고 나서 이제 전 글로벌 지구적인 커넥티비티가 생겼고 그 다음에 이제 이 디지털 테크놀로지는 뭐 시간 공간을 완전히 단축하고 바꿔놨고, 그다음에 이제 리얼 타임이라는 게 또 생겨나고, 커넥티비티라든지 또 프레젠스라든지 텔레프레젠스라든지 이런 여러 가지 얘기들이 또 하나 더 있었죠. 만인 모든 사람이 예술가가 될 수 있다. 디지털 아티스트들이 여기저기서 이제 신나게 작업을 할 수 있는 그런 시대가 열렸다고 매우 즐거워했습니다. 그리고 20년이 지났는데 그동안에 저희는 플랫폼 기업들의 성장도 보았고 여러 가지 진짜 업 앤 다운, 굴곡을 많이 지나왔습니다. 최근에 코비드로 우리가 모두가 록다운이 되기 바로 직전에 사실은 이제 한 2, 3년 전에 블록체인이라는 게 저희 또 그 새로운 그 탄생을 하게 되었죠. 그래서 사실 이제 그때부터 지금 코비드를 지나면서 또 다른 새로운 세상이 또 열리고 있는 것을 목격하고 있습니다. 바로 이제 뭐 NFT라든지 메타버스라든지 이런 새로운 세상인데, 한편으로는 2000년, 그러니까 20년 전, 25년 전 디지털이 새로운 세상을 만들었을 때 그 기쁨과 흥분이 있는 한편, 또 한편으로는 또 그것과는 조금 다른
and passion and the ownership of digital technology was again discussed as a new concept of the arts, and that makes me excited. And from today till the day after tomorrow, we will put all this agenda on the table, and through probing, we would like to continue our journey. Thank you. And also, I would like to invite Marla Stunberg from Goethe-Institut would like to listen to her opening speech.
It is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Goethe-Institut Korea to Making Lemonade. This is a 3-day online festival focusing on several questions. How can culture emerge stronger from this difficult situation in times of pandemic? How can cultural actors make the most of the challenge of having to offer more digital formats? The physical cultural experience continues to be valuable to all and cannot be replaced. It is particularly important in international cultural exchange. Nevertheless, there is a lot of thinking and talking about new possibilities because the corona crisis has opened floodgates for new artistic formats, innovative forms of artistic and cultural exchange, and new possibilities of virtual presence and virtual exchange with the consumers of artistic productions. We observe that the pandemic has enabled many digital experiments. Meanwhile, we very often hear or experience ourselves a certain fatigue, a digital fatigue, because the digital oversupply overwhelms purely quantitatively. Moreover, locally based cultural offers suddenly stand next to those of great reach, both just a click away from each other, a situation which brings new challenges for cultural actors as well as consumers. Making Lemonade would like to ask, what does a desirable digital future for culture look like? What is missing to make digital cultural presentation attractive for the future? How can we connect reality to digital reality? In approaching these questions, the festival aims to present the best practices of culture in the digital realm. Through a mix of panels, showcases, and performances, the festival discusses how the online future of culture could look like. With this event, the Goethe-Institut and its partners would like to contribute to an international exchange of experiences and necessary developments on these very topical issues. This festival is organized by the Cultural Service of the French Embassy to South Korea, Goethe-Institut Korea, and Art Center Nabi, in partnership with Recto VRSO Digital Art Festival Laval, France, and supported by the French-German Cultural Fund, much appreciated and enjoyed as an important sign for a lively Franco-German cooperation in Korea. I wish this festival many inspiring moments and insights into the impact of the pandemic on artistic creation as well as on art and cultural exchange. And personally, I'm very curious to see what recipe for a refreshing lemonade we will derive from the pandemic lemons.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our conference festival named Making Lemonade. My name is Anna, and I feel honored to come here as a moderator for the opening discussion. Making Lemonade is a 3-day online festival focusing on the question, which is how cultural actors to do their best for providing more content online in the digital era. This question seems to become significant more and more during the pandemic. So with this festival, we aim to seek what can be the best solution for culture and cultural exchanges treating digital technologies. In order to do this, we prepare for discussions of experts, showcases, and performances. This is the first slot, the opening discussions. It can be compared with washing and freshly lemons before making lemonade. Let me introduce our panels. First, Errol Oak, the General Director, Acting President, Institute of France. Hello, Errol. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Hello. Now, where are you now?
Actually, I'm at home. I'm working from the distance from my usual office because we have very strict restrictions in France right now because of the pandemic. So, so this is my home. You don't see it, but because there's another background. But I'm just sitting at my table, and my children are not there anymore. But but I'm just at home as most of other French people right now.
How has your organization dealt with the pandemic nowadays? Error, yeah.
Well, actually, most of our employees are working at home. We have tried to develop a lot of internal digital processes so as to enhance the quality of work from home, because we were used to it, but not that much, not with such an important amount of work to be done, I would say, digitally. So, so we had to adapt to this new situation quite quickly. Last year, it was in March that it really started in France. So we all of a sudden, we all went back home, and we started to work with each other, but at a distance. It worked quite well, but we in the process we learned that all our tools and our solutions were not completely ready. So we had to enhance the existing ones, and we had also to build new ones so as to work together better. And also, of course, but maybe I will speak about that later, we had to invent and to create new tools and new resources for our network internationally, because we have, of course, as the Goethe-Institut, we have a lot of partners abroad, and we have to work with them. And this was also something new, because we had to do that from home. So it was a particular moment. But now, I would say, unfortunately, because it's been lasting for almost 1 year with changes, but almost 1 year like that, we are getting used to that.
Yeah, okay. We can talk more after the whole introduction. So the next is Johannes Ebert, the Secretary General, Goethe-Institut. Nice to meet you, Johannes. Where are you now?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm also at home, actually. I'm sitting on my desk and looking on the balcony outside. It's getting spring in Germany, so first leaves are on the tree. But sometimes I actually go to the office because we have rules that about 40% of the staff can be in the office, but of course with mask and with distance. And so yesterday, for example, I was in the office because I very much enjoy meeting people in person. Although I'm very happy that the digital communication works very well. And as Errol already said, we have about 150 institutes all over the world. And I was quite happy that we were able to communicate in the digital way very fast. Yeah, it was a good situation, and we see that of course work has changed, and that communication is much more intense than before within the network. So it's a big challenge, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And the next panel is Kyuan Kim, Dr. Kim, Director of Cultural Research Bureau, Korea Culture and Tourism Institute. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. Yeah. What was the most significant changes in your work, actually? There is any? Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I'm in the office. Always I'm going to use transport with my best friend, mask. So I'm not at home, but and there are many changes. As Alberto said, the communication became more intense, and it became more sick in the head, because we must concentrate more with Zoom, etc. But it has more possibility because we could meet more artists, more cultural venue by the Zoom. Before we must move ourselves, but with Zoom we have more possibility. But there's some bad thing, but I think there's more possibility. But I'm working at office and we are meeting more people. Last year we had a forum. We have annual forum for artists and value. But last year we changed by online. it cost more, but we had more success because we could gather more artists by Zoom. So I think it's changing. It's the digital is required, not optional. So yeah, that will be yeah.
Okay, let us move to the first chapter, which is digital in culture. Actually, yeah, all of our introductions already talked about that kind of things, but maybe we can go more narrow down. So I think I can ask Aro first. How did the pandemic transform your views on digital culture?
Well, actually, we had already very strong views on digital culture as an important part of culture itself. So we always thought that this was a new trend and that had been set for a few years already, and even more than that. And of course, the pandemic situation has maybe accelerated and increased the need for digital culture. It's a question of situation because, of course, there was a strong spotlight on both online cultural content and also digital creation. So, and these two fields were fields where the Institut Français had been active for many years because we thought it was a sort of investment for the future. And of course, the situation with the pandemic crisis has make it more crucial to help this sector to invent and to foster digital creation as well as the creation of digital content. This is true generally for I think the sector, the activity field, but it's also true as regards our relations with our international network abroad, because if we want during this time of crisis, if we want the Institut Français, for instance, in Korea or in Spain or in the US to keep in touch with its audience, it's very important at that time when the audience is not able to come to live events. It's very important to feed the audience with digital cultural content. It's very important because it maintains the link between our institutions and the local audience. And this is true for, of course, all linguistic issues. It's true for cultural issues. So we had to rebuild and make maybe our tools even more efficient so as to provide our Institut Français abroad or our Alliance Française abroad all the digital cultural material needed to keep this very strong relationship with the audience, with the local audience. So I think that if we take the example of Korea, for instance, it's a country which is already very digital oriented. So this is not something very new, but of course France and I guess Germany as well had to keep up with that. So the Institut Français in Seoul had of course needed all this material to continue to interact with the audience. But if you take other audience abroad which are maybe less used to technology or to digital culture. So this might have been a new step. So we had to accompany our Institut Français and Alliance Française to do that. And also, I think digital culture is also a question of events, because we were used to organize very big live events. Of course, it was not possible anymore. So we had to invent new kind of digital events. We have, for instance, an event called La Nuit des Idées, which is the Night of Ideas. It's an event where all over the world we tend to foster the debates and discussions with intellectuals, artists, thinkers, and all over the world with our network. And usually the audience goes to a local theater or an auditorium and they discuss with the guests. It was not possible that year, of course, because of the pandemic. So we created a live digital event where all Institut Français and Alliance Française could provide digital content of debates, discussions, even cultural manifestations. Of course, often without audience, but this was forecast on a global live event for on the internet, of course, and on the social networks. So we had to transform this very usual live event into a digital live event, and it was a great success. So we had to adapt very quickly, and this is also a way of promoting digital culture, and we also wanted to show that France was very in advance in some of these fields of digital culture, video games, virtual reality. We have a lot of I would say entrepreneurs, innovation in those fields, and this was also a very good opportunity for us to show that to other countries and to show that to other international audience.
Yeah, thank you. Johannes, what kind of digital culture can you expect during the pandemic in German case, actually?
I mean, for us as the Goethe-Institut, I think we had a parallel development as the Institut Français. Yeah, we had we started, of course, like everybody, to work digitally in the 90s. But in 2013, we developed a new strategy for digital approach in the field of culture, but also as the Goethe-Institut, of course, is also doing language courses. And it's a very big topic, how to present language teaching in the digital form. There are different things, and we learned a lot in these last month. For the digital culture, we renewed this process in 2018, because between 2013 and 18, we worked a lot with virtual reality, with how to present art in the digital space. But of course, it was on a totally different level than today. It was the first experiences. I remember a discussion in one of our theaters where we brought together in a live event, maybe in 2016, people from 3 different countries to discuss on democracy. It was technically very difficult. It took us a long time to do this, and now we're doing it every day. Yeah. So you see how fast this thing has developed. And I think it was important that for the cultural producers like us or like the artists, this was a new experience, but also the recipients and the public has changed their attitude to public culture. Because what does it, if you present cultural projects in the digital sphere and the public does not accept it, it's not worthwhile. But the pandemic has changed a lot in this respect, in my opinion. And so we were quite ready, but of course we had to develop new things, new approaches, new projects. And what are the results for me? One result is that digital projects are not cheaper than live projects. I think this is a very important thing that you have to explain to politicians, because they say now you can do everything digitally, now it's much cheaper. But if you do it in a good quality, and I think Dr. Kim, you said that before about your conference, that it's quite a lot of work and it needs a lot of money. Yeah. The second thing is that what I already said, that the discourse, and I think Dr. Kim, you also mentioned it, you can get speakers from all over the world or artists from all over the world, much more easy to participate in online events. Like big speakers who normally don't travel for 3-4 days, you can have them for 1.5 hours in an event. And that's very interesting, I think. Then the question for me is the presentation of artwork. We invested, and I think everybody of us 3 invested a lot of thoughts into this. And for example, we had one exhibition, Take Me to the River, on cultural on art projects on environment and sustainability, together with the Dutch Prince Claus Fund. And we wanted to create it as a live exhibition, but then we had to transfer it to the digital. And you have to rethink how to structure this exhibition. It's not like a linear thing where you go 3, room number 1, room number 2, and room number 3, but you have to create a new narrative and a new way of non-linear narrative for this exhibition. So the user can access at every point and from different views to this exhibition. I think this is a very interesting thing. So on the other side, I personally miss the physical meeting people. And we also see in our public a certain digital fatigue. So that means in our first big online conference, we had 10,000 of clicks and views, but now it's more difficult to attract people. So we have to think about this. We also have to think about the question, and we are also everything doing with Zoom, with Teams, with WebEx. These are conference tools developed for business. And I think the culture sector did not find a new tool which is more appropriate for the sector, but used these tools. And then there's one thing when I look on the whole world, in certain countries, and I think Errol mentioned it a little bit, we have this digital gap. Yeah, we have, and maybe in every country within the country, because only a certain class of people, educated people, has access to the digital. So we have to do, what do we do with this situation? And also in other countries, you even have the problem that you don't get the speed to read for the how do you say it in English? You don't get the strength to transfer really all the digital projects that we do. Yeah, for example, in some African countries, for our partners, we buy packages of bytes so that they can more easy access to our offers. So in short, I think we learned a lot, and I think there are big chances in the digital culture. But I think there's open questions and challenges that we really have to discuss, and I'm quite happy that maybe during this conference this will happen.
Thank you. Yeah. Dr. Kim, I think the Korean situation is not much different from Germany or France, and the both of the director just kind of talked about our kind of the advantage and the disadvantage of the digital technologies, including kind of digital gap between the generations and money problems and the new challenge, new kind of experiences through the digital technologies. How about your experience during the pandemic in Seoul?
Okay, to explain more, I will speak in Korean. 한국 사람들은 사실은 디지털에 어느 나라보다 더 빨리 적응되어 왔던 사람들이라고 생각하고 사실은 그 디지털 문화에 굉장히 익숙하다고 생각했는데 사실은 가장 익숙하지 않은 분야가 예술하고 문화 분야였다는 걸 이번에 알았습니다. 그래서 패닉 이후에 그 예술계하고 특히 문화계는 완전히 그 굉장히 힘들어. 오히려 다른 부분은 오히려 좀 쉬웠는데 공연 쪽, 문학 쪽, 시각예술 쪽은 굉장히 힘들어했다는 게 초기의 그 상황입니다. 근데 아까 다들 말씀하신 거와 똑같은 일들이 발생했어요. 그 돈의 예산의 문제라든지 그런 부분이 생겼는데, 근데 이런 일이 있었어요. 그 내셔널 트래디셔널 시어터, 그러니까 국립국악원에서 예전에 그 연습용으로 만들던 VR, 버추얼 리얼리티 영상이 있었는데 이번에 이런 일이 터지고 나서 그걸 한번 방송을 유튜브에 올리기 시작했는데 굉장한 그 효과를 줬다는 거죠. 그래서 담당자를 만났는데 자기들은 이럴 거라고 생각하지 않고 이 이전에 만들었던 건데 굉장히 효과가 좋았다. 그리고 아시다시피 젊은 한국인들이 트래디셔널 뮤직을 들을 기회가 많이 없었는데 이걸 통해서 트래디셔널 뮤직에 대해서 더 많이 들을 수 있는 그런 기회가 생긴 거는 분명히 있고 특히 클래식이라든지 순수 예술에 대한 그 접근이 높아진 것은 확실합니다. 그리고 특히 교육이라든지 오디언스 빌딩에는 굉장히 큰 효과가 있는 게 맞는데 많은 분들이 말씀하신 게 이게 처음에는 무료로 다 이렇게 홍보하는 걸 하다가 나중에 무슨 문제가 생기냐면 저희도 똑같은 문제가 생기는데 뭐 저작권이라든지 그리고 소득 분배라든지 아니면 그런 부분 그리고 이 소유권이 어디 있느냐 이 부분이 게다가 저희가 이 부분에 컨텐츠를 올리는 게 상업 포털이기 때문에 플랫폼이기 때문에 거기와 문제 이 부분들이 굉장히 그 디테일한 그래가지고 뭐 악마는 디테일에 있다가 또 데빌 이즈 인 디테일 그 말이 디지털과 똑같은데 무조건 좋은 게 아니라 굉장히 많은 부분에서 문제가 생기고 있고 그리고 말씀하신 것과 똑같이 공연이나 어떤 예술이 진짜 몸으로 부딪혀서 할 수 있는 그런 장점은 아직 안 왔다. 그리고 많은 분들도 사실은 직접 보는 거와 다르다. 단 부수적으로는 도움이 된다. 이 부분을 얘기하고 있고 앞으로 해야 될 부분은 그래서 저희가 이제 뭐 예술의 전당, 서울 아트센터 이런 데는 8K, 8K 그 레졸루션 하이 데시티한 영상들을 보내고 있긴 하는데 이게 전체 영상일 수는 없고 진짜 하나의 홍보용 정도로는 지금 쓰고 있는데 이 부분이 얼마나 오래 갈까? 근데 한 가지 놀란 거는 다른 나라에서도 다 겪었지만 이 디지털 세상이 이렇게 가까이 올 거라고 상상이 못했는데 사람들이 굉장히 빠르게 적응을 하고 가까이 오고 있다 이런 걸 볼 수가 있고 그래서 지금 아마 굉장히 중요한 그 예술 공연장들은 디지털 영상화 작업들을 하고 있고 뭐 아까 프랑스에서도 마찬가지고 한국의 문화체육관광부 같은 경우도 예를 들어서 그 뭐 실감형 공연 프로그램을 하는데 뭐 지금 뭐 400 거의 뭐 하여튼 굉장히 지금 돈으로 계산하기 굉장히 어려운데 많은 예산을 붓고 지금 뭐 전시라든지 공연 예술 영상하는데 붓고 있는데 저도 걱정이 이게 계속 갈 것인가 그리고 나중에 여기서 돈의 문제를 어떻게 해결할 것인가 이런 부분은 문제가 굉장히 발생하고 있고 단 아까 말씀하신 것처럼 더 많은 사람들 만나고 작업하고 하는 환경에 대한 부분의 준비는 굉장히 되고 있고 더 많은 사람들을 국제적으로 만날 수 있는 가능성은 굉장히 늘어나고 있다. 그래서 우리는 이렇게 얘기해요. More possibility but less impression. 아직 그 감동은 별로다. 근데 가능성은 높아지고 있다. 근데 어차피 이거는 뭐 필수적인 상황이기 때문에 하고 있는데 하여튼 이 많은 돈의 문제라든지 재정의 문제 그리고 기술의 문제 아시다시피 뭐 한국은 기술의 문제를 빨리 적응하는 데 굉장히 잘하고 있기 때문에 이런 부분은 금방 되겠지만 그리고 예술의 가치가 진짜 무엇인가에 대해서 이제 사람들이 생각하고 있는 그런 상황입니다. Was the translating was it good? Or... Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kim. Yeah, maybe Error and Johannes, hopefully you understand. You understand. Now you understand.
Yes, very good, very well.
Okay.
Very important questions.
Okay, yeah, because we have a time limit, so I think we needed to move to the next questions. Actually, I have one question about the this kind of digital culture, but I will ask you maybe in the final chapter. Yeah, let us talk about the international exchange first. First, Error, can you introduce a good example of international exchange in this kind of period? Then you cannot go abroad.
Yes, well, of course, mobility is something very important for us. Mobility from France towards foreign countries, and also mobility from foreign countries towards France for artists, intellectuals, civil society. We try to promote that. This is really our a core value for the Institut Français, and I guess for other kinds of similar institutions. And usually, of course, we do that on a physical basis because we think, as Dr. Kim and Johannes have already mentioned, that the physical encounter of people, artists, work of arts is very important. It is a key part of the creation. You create for an audience and you meet the audience, and this is the exchange and dialogue that is important. Of course, because of the situation, we have tried to adapt to that situation, but we thought that mobility, even if it would be a digital mobility, was still a very crucial issue that we had to maintain, and we had to adapt to that situation. So we changed a bit the format and the structure of our events or our tools or our programs. And for instance, we had, we tried to make culture professionals from the culture sector internationally speaking. We tried to make them come to France to see our local artistic scene or cultural scene and to meet French artists and French cultural professionals. Usually we do that physically. So for instance, they come to big theater festivals in the summertime in Avignon or in other parts of France, or they come to a big gathering of artists with the spectacular events in Paris and things like that. Of course, this was not possible. It hasn't been possible for almost 1 year. So we organized digital encounters for these professionals. They could, so the French artists could show their production, show their art digitally. There were small presentations. They could pitch also for their projects, and of course the foreign professionals and artists could exchange with them. And it was also also it was even easier than what we had imagined. Of course, we lacked the physical presence, but we could organize very interesting events with people from all over the world. And this also gave a strong impact for these meetings, and professionally it also led to successful success stories between artists. So we could maintain this link, even it was not a physical link, but of course it demanded a lot of work from our team, because they had to change very quickly all the existing programs and projects, and explain to the artists and to the international people usually who would come to Paris. We have, for instance, another program at the Cannes Film Festival, where we try to promote co-productions between French production companies and foreign production companies, with a lot of support that we try to bring to foreign film directors, and they come to the Cannes market festival, and then we help them exchange with French professionals. We try to create this link, and then maybe later this helps produce the film and get the funds, and then to be distributed in France, for instance. Of course, because of the situation in Cannes last year, it was not possible to do it that way. So in a few weeks, we had to build this entirely digital program with meetings with those professionals, and it was a big success already. It was not the same thing as usual, but I think, and that's what the foreign directors and producers told us, it was very important because they have found professional contacts. They have visited the Cannes Film Festival, even if it was not a usual session, but it worked quite well. So this is an example of how the digital technology could help keep that bridge of mobility, I would say, alive. And so we think that we will, even after the crisis, we will probably try to take that into account, and we will probably keep some of our projects or our programs, even if physical mobility will be possible. We will keep a part of that, because it's it changed the dimension and the impact of the event. So this is something we have to consider, and probably in the future, when this whole crisis will be over, probably we will have physical encounters and mobility. That this is our usual goal that we want to promote, but we will probably keep some of the digital possibilities that have been offered to us during this special time.
Thank you. Then how about in Germany, Johannes? Do you think this kind of international exchange will develop after the pandemic? Can you develop more with the digital technologies, or kind of we have more restrictions or kind of the problems? How do you think of that?
No, I think the quality of this exchange is changing. Yeah, and for us, after we saw exactly 1 year ago, in the middle of March, that there's the first lockdown in Germany. Yeah, I remember I was sitting at home on the screen and sometimes going out to the balcony for 2.5 or 3 months. We said, what can we do? What can we help? And of course, there are classical events, conferences, and so on, which we transfer to the digital. I think everybody of us did it. But we also developed new formats, and what was also astonishing, and I was very happy about it, we were very fast. We were faster than in normal times. Yeah, the whole institution was very fast, and I'm quite happy about that. And I always say we have to take the spirit of fastness from the beginning of the pandemic to the time after the pandemic. Which maybe is not possible, but we found many solutions. For example, we had one project. We saw that artists all over the world could not perform anymore, and Dr. Kim Yu said that, for example, for Korea. But in Germany we have this too. The theaters are closed, and they are open, and they are closed, and only 20 people can go in instead of 200. And of course, this is a big crisis. There's a big help by the German state to the local community, arts community. And we said, okay, we want to create a platform where everybody who has a live stream can upload it from all over the world and present it everywhere. And we created a platform called Kulturama Digital, which has two parts. One part is you can put in live streams and upload them, and everybody can see. And you have a donation button where you can give some money to the artist, which is also very important in these times. And you have a kind of an archive where you can upload works of artists. And it was very successful in the first half year of the pandemic. We had 400 to 500 live streams permanently. Now it's getting a little bit less because we see that in every country there are their own solutions. You can go to the theaters again sometime. Now we have about 100 live streams every day. But this was a new form of offering something for cultural exchange that we did not have before, and that we only were able to develop because of the situation in the pandemic. There's another thing which is not digital, but it's also important. In many countries, we saw that civil society cultural actors could not work anymore. And we made with our foreign ministry and some foundations a rescue fund where we gave them money to develop, for example, digital programs for their audience and made them able to continue their work, which was very important. It was so successful that we will double the fund this year because, for example, we had one cinema who could not have guests anymore, and they developed a new digital program with the money from us, and so they could continue working. And things like that for cultural exchange and for helping cultural partners in the countries where we work, for us was very important. Besides many discussions and art projects in the digital, but these were things created especially for the situation. And I think this is our task as organizers, to really analyze the need and then try to develop the formats that are needed. And sometimes it works, sometimes not, but I think these are two good examples for this.
Yes, thank you, Johannes. And maybe I think Dr. Kim can talk about the Korean examples, which seems to be the whose situation seems to be better than other two countries, though. Yeah.
뭐 상황은 비슷하지만 힘든 건 마찬가지인데, 저는 독일의 경우와 비슷한 얘기를 일단 먼저 디지털보다 먼저 시작하는 게 지역 문화, 로컬 컬처에 대해서 새로운 변화가 생겼다. 특히 왜냐하면 다른 지역으로 이동을 못하기 때문에 지역 안에서의 로컬 커뮤니티가 더 중요해지고, 거기서 있는 로컬 컬처가 굉장히 훨씬 사람들한테 이제는 서울 메트로폴리탄에 안 가도 여기서 우리가 문화를 만들 수 있다, 이런 움직임들이 굉장히 많아졌고, 거기에 대한 지원들이 많아진 거는 저는 굉장히 긍정적이다. 그래서 로컬 안에서의 굉장히 많은 활동들이 생겨나고, 다행히 저희는 그렇게 심하지 않아서 로컬 안에서 록다운은 별로 없었기 때문에 그 안에서 많은 활동들이 벌어지고 있는 거는 새로운 변화다. 이건 디지털과 달리 오히려 가까운 지역에서의 문화가 살아나고 있다는, 그거는 한국에서 지금 지방자치와 많은 재단들이 생기면서 변화가 생기고 있다. 이런 부분은 굉장히 긍정적으로 보고 있고, 아시다시피 작년부터 공연 쪽에서, 퍼포밍 아트 쪽에서는 공연장을 열어라 이런 걸 요구를 했습니다. 이건 프랑스도 마찬가지고, 왜냐하면 공연장은 지하철과 마찬가지로 마스크를 쓰고 있기 때문에 괜찮다. 그래서 사실은 저희는 많은 공연장이 열었지만 공연 객석 수를 굉장히 제한했기 때문에 굉장히 힘들게 하고 있고, 지금 사실은 뭐 대한민국에서 인터내셔널 익스체인지에서 가장 중요한 2개 페스티벌이 지금 열리고 있는데, 그 중에 하나는 통영 인터내셔널 뮤직 페스티벌이 3월 26일부터 4월 4일까지 하고 있는데, 많은 나라에서 오셔가지고 직접 공연을 하세요. 근데 공연을 하신 분들이 굉장히 힘들어해요. 왜냐하면 일단은 몇 주 동안 계시고 뭐 여러 가지 검사를 받고 하는데도 이분들이, 그러니까 디지털과 달리 실제로 공연장에서 연주를 하는 거에 대한 관객들도 그렇고 연주자들도 엄청나게 감동을 받고 있는 거죠. 이게 전에는 그냥 일반적으로 공연을 본다 했는데 실제로 공연을 보고 만나고 하는 거에 대한 감동을 받고 있는 경우가 이번에 통영에서 있었고, 두 번째는 오늘부터 광주 비엔날레가 오픈합니다. 광주 비엔날레가 오픈하는데 광주 비엔날레는 온라인하고 오프라인을 같이 합니다. 그 시각이기 때문에. 그래서 이제 많은 부분이 둘을 같이 하는 부분을 이제 시각예술이기 때문에 하고 있는데, 사실은 말씀하신 것처럼 시각예술이 특히 이제 뭐 미디어 아트나 비디오 아트 같은 경우는 굉장히 좋은데, 그렇지 않은 경우에 사실은 굉장히 어려운 점이 있어서 둘을 같이 하는데, 여기서 하나의 문제가 뭐 이거는 프랑스, 독일도 마찬가지로 생각하는데, 깐드도 마찬가지고 뭐 독일도 마찬가지인데, 사실은 지역의 페스티벌하고 익스체인지 하는 거에 중요한 이유는 메트로폴리탄 지역이 아니라 지역의 매력을 사람들이 찾게 하는 거에 있는데, 이게 디지털로 갔을 때 문제가 생깁니다. 그러니까 그 수도인 큰 도시가 아니라 작은 지역에 가서 그 축제를 가지고 지역의 매력을 찾아야 되는데, 그 부분이 이제 사라진 거죠. 이거는 디지털로 할 수가 없는 부분. 예를 들어서 광주는 대한민국에서 음식이 가장 맛있는 지역인데 광주의 음식을 맛볼 수가 없는 거죠. 온라인으로 할 경우. 그리고 광주의 매력을 맛볼 수가 없는 거. 그래서 앞으로 문제는 디지털 좋은데, 사실은 디지털 그 페스티벌이나 익스체인지를 하는 그 도시나 공간의 매력에 대한 부분을 어떻게 해결할 것인가. 지금까지 했던 이건 관광 얘기가 아니라 진짜 그 지역을 알게 되고 지역의 좀 좋은 점, 아이덴티티를 알게 되는 부분이 굉장히 어렵지 않나. 근데 일단은 우리는 온라인, 대한민국 온라인, 오프라인을 병행해가지고 페스티벌은 열고 있고 극장은 열고 있습니다. 그래서 저희도 최대한 디지털로 가는 사회로 가고 있지만, 어떻게라도 오프라인이나 진짜 컨택트 부분은 끝까지 가져가려고 하는 부분이 있고, 이 부분은 아마 올해 안에 좀 결판이 나지 않을까. 그렇더라도 디지털로 하는 굉장히 많은 그 창작에 대한 실험들은 벌어지고 있습니다. 그래서 저는 더 많은 퍼시빌리티다. 그리고 그 공연에 대해서 많은 그 실험들은 벌어지고 있어가지고 저는 두 가지가 같이 가고 있는데, 걱정하는 건 아까 말씀드렸듯이 그런 아트 장르들은 굉장히 발전하는데 지역의 매력, 그리고 지역에 직접 가서 누릴 수 있는 매력에 대한 부분은 어떻게 해결할까? 이건 큰 문제가 아닐까 그 생각이 듭니다.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kim. Actually, we now move to the final question, which seems to be very clear.
Sorry, Anna, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me.
Now, yes, now it's okay.
What's the problem? I don't know though. Yeah, we are going to move to the final chapter. We talked about the many examples and the kind of the situations among those three countries with the digital culture and the kind of international exchanges. So what I'm wondering is that the first is after the pandemic, still this kind of digital culture and the technologies which would be developed during the pandemic can be ongoing. That is my first question, because this kind of digital technologies, as you talked about that, we need more governmental support because of the money problem, and the kind of generation gap would be the problem as well. And the governmental support will bring out the governmental intervention as well, which is unavoidable. So how do you think of that? Please let us talk about kind of that, the future, our future, which means post-pandemic. What can you describe this kind of digital culture, in your country, or kind of between the cultural exchanges among the kind of countries? Can you talk first error?
Yes, I think that's the key question now, and we all ask ourselves what will happen in the very near future after the crisis. What will change in these new digital trends in culture? It's a challenge because as we spoke about the digital gap, it's a gap within the countries. I think that Dr. Kim and Johannes have spoken about that, and it's completely true. In all countries, we have the digital divide. It's also sometimes a gap between countries where the audience are not used to that kind of digital habits, of course. And I think that probably the trend will be I think, to reduce the gap, probably because there will be more offer online. There will be a greater variety of offers, of online offers and of digital resources made available. So probably also because the new generations are much more used to that than before, and they are great. They have a lot of cultural consumption habits, I would say, in some countries, not everywhere, of course. So I think probably this gap will tend to be lower in some countries, but not all of them. Of course, when as government bodies we support some fields of culture, French culture, German culture, European culture, Korean culture as well, we may have an impact on that, because if we support some very specific sectors and without thinking about the audience, well, this is not very responsible. I think we have to keep the question of the audience in mind. It's very important to, to find new audience thanks to the digital offers that we support. But there's also, I think, a question of education of the audience for digital culture, because behind that, there's a lot of questions about, what is the power of the image, what is the difference between digital culture and physical culture, what's the difference, why do we need an artwork physically, or maybe why we don't need that. It depends a lot. So I think our responsibility is also to explain that. And I think that the artists are very good. They are the people who can explain that, and they can, I mentioned the importance of the debates and discussions. I think this goes this goes along very well with the cultural resources that we put online. We have to, foster explanations of what is happening. We have to try to maybe teach new audiences what digital culture is, because otherwise then there will be maybe a new habit of very strong consumption without the critical distance, and we need that. So I think this is one of our responsibility. But the idea of this trend, which will probably go on, is a bet. But I think we are putting our money on this bet, because for instance, if we took the Institut Français and the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have launched a program to develop the digital equipment, resources, training of all our international network abroad. So, for instance, the Institut Français in Korea, in other institutes and Alliance Française all over the world, they have been asked, so what are your needs? Do you connect easily with your audience on a digital way? Do you have the specific, technological solutions? We will help you foster that, and we'll help you develop these technical and technological abilities. So it's a bet that we think is reasonable. Probably there will be a continuation of that trend, but I think we just have to be, careful, and we have to think a lot right now about the importance also of physical exchange and of physical mobility. We try to make a lot of foreign artists come to Paris or to other places in France to cultural or artistic residencies. So right now this is more or less suspended. It depends, and we also offer some kind of digital substitutions. But I think this is very important to have people come physically and to visit the places, to meet the people, to have this whole ecosystem discussed and visited. As Dr. Kim said, behind culture is a lot of other things. There are some territories, there is gastronomy, there is entrepreneurship. So I think it's important not to lose that. And of course, digital cannot replace everything. It can do a lot of things. It can improve and multiply our way to touch new audiences. But this is not the answer to everything. And well, I think we still have some time now to think a lot and to stop and think about the question you asked about the future. I think it's important to think right now.
Thank you, Errol. And Johannes, I know that German government already now is supporting artists with a huge budget and money, but developing and maintaining and kind of accessing the digital culture in the private sector of culture, you need, I think, extra budget of the kind of the government or from the government. So how can you, do you think the government can cope with this kind of the money program in terms of the digital kind of technologies? And what kind of a future are you expecting after kind of after the pandemic is over?
For the first question, yeah, you are right. The German government is supporting very much the cultural sector, where people don't have jobs anymore, where theaters can play. I think there's 2 billion euro for the cultural sector to support in different ways. And in these ways are programs of digitalization. Every museum has the possibility, for example, or every theater to make a proposal for projects how they can digitalize their work. And of course, this is working actually quite well. But I think this is an immediate reaction to the crisis. And I'm quite happy that the German government is doing that. But I think the responsibility for the future is on institutions like ours. I mean, Goethe is a civil society organization. Yeah, it has a contract with the state, but I think the professional, the entrepreneurs, the artists, they are all challenged to develop a vision for the future. I think this is not a thing for the state, but the state should create the framework for this. Financing laws and so on and so on. And I think the copyright law is a very important thing that Dr. Kim mentioned. So I think there are very many things to create a framework for this development. For me, the future, it's very easy. It's hybrid. It's both, and it has to be both. Yeah. And the vision is, of course, after the pandemic, to take the positive side from the digital and to take the positive from the physical, which is easier said than done, of course. And I agree totally with Errol. Now is the time to think. Now is the time of our responsibility to define how the future of cultural exchange can be. Yeah, and actually we're having two processes in this respect. We are having an internal process of all our 150 institutes under the question, what do we learn from Corona? And all our regional meetings have the task to write down best practices and bad practices. What do we want to continue? What do we want to stop in the future? And on the other hand, we are within our global network. We are preparing a big project this year, which is called working title. We have to find another one because this title is not so original. It's called, the working title is Corona Lectures. So on 5 places of the world, our institutes are bringing people together from our network, artists, philosophers, musicians, and so on, to discuss questions which have become important for us during the pandemic. But it's also political questions. What is the future of democracy? Because we all saw in our countries that democratic rights were reduced for the advantage of security, which in a certain moment was right, but we have to discuss what does that mean to our societies. The question of economy, the question of technology. So we are in the process of creating this this project to find out through our partners how can the future look. And I think everybody of us has the task to organize these events, to exchange and to define what we have learned, what do we want to continue, what do we want to stop, and how a future would look like. It will not be like before the pandemic. Of that, I'm sure. And it should not, because with the digital, you have a much bigger reach, and with the physical, you have a depth that we need for cultural exchange. And we have to combine the two. And I think it's our task to develop ideas how we do that.
Thank you. And maybe I think Dr. Kim has a lot of things to talk about that. Yeah, because you are now kind of researcher from the governmental sector. So how do you think of the kind of the future, our cultural future with the digital technologies after pandemic?
Okay. 사실 작년 초에는 디지털 퓨처에 대해서 생각을 못했습니다. 너무 급해가지고. 너무 힘들어가지고 디지털이라든지 퓨처에 대한 그 생각을 하지 못하고 일단 살아남자 그 생각을 하고 저희도 이제 저희 문화부 예산을 보면 작년에도 초반에는 거의 예술가를 지원하고 살아남기 위한 예산 중심을 하다가 올해 들어서야 작년 말이나 올해에서야 이제 디지털에 대한 예산들이 들어와서 그 부분을 하고 있는데 그래도 한 가지 특히 독일이나 프랑스의 많은 사례들이 도움이 된 게 저희가 몇 년 동안 못했던 예술인에 특화된 보험이 작년에 통과가 됐습니다. 그래서 예술인들만 특화되게 좀 지원할 수 있는 보험이 작년에 코로나 이후로 진짜 예술가가 힘들다 해서 그 보험이 됐고 그래서 올해부터 그 보험을 통해서 예술가의 지원이 가능해 된 거는 어떻게 보면 슬픈 일이지만 이런 힘든 때에 예술가를 지원하는 부분이 오히려 가능해졌다. 그런 부분인데 뭐 그게 그 전에 됐으면 훨씬 좋지 않았을까 그런 생각이 되고 그 이후에 일단은 급하게 예술가들이 예술이 살아남기 위해서 지원을 하다가 올해 말부터는 이제 디지털 생각을 하기 시작한 거죠. 기존에 있던 디지털 예산들을 약간 확장하는 게 아니라 크게 확장하는데 한 가지 사례가 옛날에는 작년까지는 국립박물관 내셔널 뮤지엄의 디지털화는 보통 이런 겁니다. 북한에 있는 노스코리아에 있는 헤리티지를 우리가 못 보니까 이걸 디지털로 보여준다. 아니면 없어진 헤리티지를 디지털로 보여준다. 이런 데 부분에만 축소돼 있는데 이제는 모든 문화재를 다 디지털로 보여주는 걸로 바뀌기 시작한 거죠. 그러다 보니까 좋은 게 사실은 굉장히 박물관에 오기 힘든 분들이나 아니면 그걸 관람이 어려운 분들까지도 박물관에 있는 많은 걸 볼 수가 있고 영상을 볼 수가 있고 특히 다행히 한국은 디지털에 대해서 큰 격차는 없습니다. 디지털을 받아들이는데 나이 드신 분이나 젊은 애 그래서 이 부분이 큰 그 차별 없이 들어올 수 있는 부분이 생기는데 문제는 이제 이 부분이 퀄리티하고 기획이 있다. 그리고 이제부터 생각해야 된다. 보통 20세기 초에 복제가 뭐냐 얘기했을 때 고민처럼 이제 진짜 예술의 아우라가 뭔지 그리고 예술의 디지털에 어떤 가치가 있는지는 이제 고민을 해야 되는 시점이 아닌가. 일단은 문화부는 뭐 다른 나라나 마찬가지로 뭐 박물관 같은 경우는 한 관에 뭐 8만 달러씩 지원해가지고 뭐 지능형 박물관을 만든다. 그리고 공연장 같은 경우도 거의 뭐 40만 달러를 각 공연장마다 지원해가지고 뭐 공연을 만든다. 이런 예산을 들고 있는데 왜 하느냐, 어떻게 하느냐, 그리고 무엇이 진짜 예술인가에 대한 생각에 대한 부분은 이제 고민을 해야 된다. 그분은 프랑스하고 독일에서 두 분이 다 말씀하신 것과 같이 진짜 우리한테 필요한 것이 뭐인가에 생각을 해야 되고 또한 문제가 저희가 이제 락다운이 되다가 박물관이 어느 정도 풀릴 때 저희가 예약을 받기 시작했는데 대부분 국립박물관들이 예약이 거의 그날 매진이 다 됩니다. 공연장도. 그러니까 사람들이 직접 가고 보고 싶던 생각들이 반영이 되는 건데 이게 디지털이 오래되면 그런 욕구들이 그대로 남아있을까? 그러니까 코로나가 없어진 다음에도 디지털로 볼 수 있는데 이걸 직접 가봐야 되는 그런 가치에 대한 부분이 남아있을까에 대한 부분이 굉장히 걱정되는 부분이고 그래서 그 부분에 대해서 디지털이 할 수 있는 거는 그래도 아직은 보완적인 부분에서 도와주는 거 그리고 사실은 그 아날로그 실제 볼 수 없는 사람들이나 그런 부분에 대해서 우리가 보여주는 거에 좀 제한하고 하는 부분에 대해서 고민해야 되지 않나 그런 생각을 하고 있고 일단은 코로나 이후에 예술가들의 가치라든지 전 국민적으로 그리고 예술가들이 진짜 필요한 존재라는 부분은 이게 불행 중 다행이지만 인식이 된 것 같다는 생각이 있습니다. 그래서 하여튼 말씀하신 것처럼 무조건 디지털로 간다 그런 부분이 아니라 이제부터 진짜 고민은 시작됐다. 그런 생각이 듭니다.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. So I think we are now almost getting there. So we need to close our session. So within 1 hour, I think we talked about various cases and examples of the transformation happened in the cultural sector and international exchanges during the pandemic. So it was not only in the kind of negative ways, but also kind of very positive ways we can have and expect it. And so hopefully this discussion can help you to understand what kind of situation we are and preparing for the future in the cultural sector. Thank you all of the panels. You are very, very kind of clever and kind of for your kind of clever understanding and the kind of information. And thank you for the Goethe-Institut and the Institut Français. And thank you for the audience to watch this kind of our panels. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay healthy.
Very important. Okay.
happy to welcome you online to meet Manuel Rosa, who will introduce us to two of his latest works in the next 50 minutes. If you have questions, please use the comment section in YouTube. Manuel Rosner is an artist who lives in Berlin and who designs digital spaces and virtual worlds. And his topics are the effects of technological developments in society and art, and amongst this, the future of exhibition in the digital world. Manuel, thank you very much for joining us here at Making Lemonade. You will be giving us a tour through two of your latest creations. First, the app-based digital exhibition, Surprisingly, This Rather Works. And second, to your virtual studio in the virtual world, Decentraland. Welcome, Manuel, and thank you for taking us with you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to introduce you to these two recent projects. I will share my screen so I can show you around a bit. So to get started, this is the overview of Berlin and my recent show, my digital solo show that we launched in April 2020. So really in the beginning of the pandemic, is situated at Königgalerie in the heart of Berlin. So here you can see the TV tower, and close by Johann König has this wonderful gallery, which is a former church with brutalist architecture. And then my show is fully digital, but based on the physical model of the gallery. The first thing I did was I created this extension of the physical space with things that you usually can't do in reality. Maybe you can make something similar, but it's not the same with those bubbles that are super interactive. And then when you go inside, so this imagery was presented online only, so like on Instagram, on social media, on websites. So you get an idea of the outside view of the gallery. And then for getting inside in the exhibition, you can download an app, which is called Königgalerie. You can still download it from the App Store and from Google Play. And then you get started inside this exhibition. Here you can see the nave of the former church. And this is the show Surprisingly Rather Works. It was curated by Johann and Annika Meyer. And usually you have it on your phone. This is just a developer mode to show you online what it looks like. And you can walk through it like a game. Oh, and we already saw something special that usually doesn't happen in exhibitions. So you can throw over a sculpture, for example. And then there are those paintings that I later on also produced as physical artworks. And it's a bit challenging. So you see this path here on the floor, and then you can jump on here. But if you do it in the app and you are not so experienced, of course, like every game, it's really a challenge for beginners. But in the end, I hope everyone made it up there. Otherwise, it requires more training. So I'm really interested in the way you do games and the aesthetic of the digital. So I kind of use the digital as my material. And for example, the colors, they come from color coding, which is a way to tear apart different objects in a virtual world. And then, there's this parkour that you can follow along. And it's also related to the way artificial intelligence learns. So like a machine vision script can tear apart a yellow thing from a blue thing in the background way better than two white objects next to each other. And here I reached the goal. Oh, this is a bit of a spoiler, but you can still play the game. I think it's still fun. And so I'm really interested in creating something between game and art experience. I mean, of course, games are also art, but I guess you know what I mean with contemporary art and all those questions of what painting is that I related to in this world, this piece, for example. And so this was in April 2020. And then most recently, maybe you noticed the hypes of NFTs, like digital certificates for artworks that make people able to own digital artworks, which back then was not, I mean, it was possible, but nobody was that much interested into it. And when we started this one, we were like, okay, interesting, but how does a gallery work with that, which of course is a commercial place and needs to earn money just like I do. So we said, interesting, let's see. And now, like a month ago, NFTs happened, and like Christie's and Sotheby's are making auctions for millions. But also us, we developed this a bit further. And I hope you can now see Decentraland in the browser window.
Mm-hmm. So this is this is Decentraland, Manuel. Maybe you can also very quickly, I don't know if it's possible, explain what NFTs are for people who don't know how they function.
So yeah, NFTs. I mean, it's a technology based on the blockchain, which is best known for Bitcoin probably. And it's a decentralized network of computers. So nobody is really like in control, but everybody is a bit in control. And so the system kind of sustains itself. But instead of trading digital currency like Bitcoin, NFTs are there for making contracts and storing information. So you can store ownership. You can say this artwork belongs to this collector or to this artist. And here in Decentraland, which also has the name Decentral, for example, also the ground that the gallery is built on is stored as an NFT. And then you can sell it to somebody else. It has a different functionality. And there's a huge ecosystem developing at the moment.
And it's quite expensive to buy some piece of land in Decentraland, right?
Yeah, that's true. This one was, we're fortunate to have a landlord who owns this land here, and he lent it to us. But I also have like one parcel. So one parcel is 16 by 16 meters. And this land here is 14. So I have one of them, and that was, yeah, like a square meter in a flat in Berlin. So yeah, prices are also, sometimes they rise, sometimes they fall, but I guess, yeah, there's a lot of investment going on. Yeah, then we were able to quite quickly build up the gallery here that you earlier saw in Google Maps in Berlin. But now it's in Decentraland next to the conference center and some neighbors we have here, because that's also a cool thing. It's a world a bit like Second Life, but you really have neighbors and they can change what's happening on their ground without you really being able to influence that. So that's super interesting. And now when you enter here, you have this very same gallery space. I mean, this one you didn't see in the app. It was the one upstairs. So yeah, here you start in the app that we saw before. But this is a group show right now. And on the walls, you can see the NFT pieces. For example, also the sculptures are like sold as NFTs, and then you can click on them, and OpenSea is a platform for selling those objects. And here you can see the biddings of the auctions that we made. The currency is Ether, which is around, I think, $2,000 right now. So that's also always changing. Yeah, and then we had an auction with all the artworks right here. And I also made 2 videos for this, which you can see here. So this is called drop sculpture, with this object falling down a staircase and then being moved out of the screen by myself. So I try to explore the digital realm a bit. And this one is a bit more related to painting. It's like the virtual paintings that you saw before. This one is also an experiment of what painting can be in the digital realm. So it's melting, and then it's not melting anymore, and looping, and yeah, becoming something else.
I think it's kind of ironic almost that you're entering a virtual world where you put some images on the wall, just like you would do it. So I think it's very interesting to see this kind of animated pictures in the virtual world as well. And Manuel, you also have a studio in Decentraland, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how you're using this? Are you really working there as an artist? Are you painting your digital paintings there?
I will jump there. So here in the URL, you can see I'm changing the address to 4-45, which will be my studio. I hope it will work in a second. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, when I heard about this, I thought this is super interesting for my work because it's a space that you can really build something on, and you have people visiting that just step by and are not really maybe intending to visit. But of course, we also had a huge opening with people that participated in the exhibition. But yeah, here you can really land by accident, which is super cool. And yeah, so I got one piece of land and I do experiments on it. So it's not like a studio that I'm working in, because that would be a bit hard, because you would have to develop a lot of tools. I'm not sure if it's possible to really produce something in there at the moment, but maybe in the future. So here I rather use it as an exhibition space. And also, since I'm working with architecture anyway, I try to play with the building itself. And so the concrete one is mine. My neighbor has this pink wall, I don't know. So when you walk inside, you see a video of that I did like 2012 or 13, I think. So pretty old work. And then, yeah, you can hang out a bit on this is part of the drop sculpture video that I showed earlier. So here it is as a 3D model. The quality is a bit more, a bit less detailed, because when you're walking around in a virtual world, you need to load content very fast, so you can't put that much detail into it. And also to give you an idea for the show in the app, I think I've been working like 3 or 4 months on it. Also before, the gallery was closed due to COVID. But then to turn it into an app was a few weeks of work for me, because we already had the model and everything planned. And then moving it to Decentraland was also like a week or 2 or something to make it accessible there.
And did you have to pay anything for building the building itself? No.
The building itself, that's because I'm used to work in 3D and I build these objects there. If you have somebody who can do it, or if you do it yourself, that's for free. But then the land, of course, costs, but it might also be a good investment. At least it was for me. I think it got a bit expensive, or more expensive already.
I see.
So
this is what you are currently working on, Manuel. Maybe for the last 2 minutes, share some sentence about your latest project.
Oh yes, that's cool. Now I also did physical objects, as I mentioned, and I'm continuing to work on it. And then I also work on exhibitions for Kunsthalle Hamburg and for the Grand Palais in Paris, which kind of extend the ideas that I'm already having here. But I think this territory is so big, and I'm super curious to continue exploring it. I see already a lot of possibilities out there. And then I'm also working on an app for myself, which will be called, I guess, Recent Works, if the title is not taken. And there's also a bit of AR functionality planned, so you can really put a piece into your living room or wherever you are. And that's also pretty nice. So I really like to play with these kind of different versions of reality and how to merge and exchange them.
Okay, well, our time is already over. That was really quick, but I think we got a glimpse into the things you are working with. Thank you so much, Manuel. I'm really curious about your next works and hope to see more from you. Thank you so much.
So cool, yeah. Thank you too.
Bye.
Thank you for putting this together. Curious to see what's happening.
Yes, and for the audience, please stay tuned. We'll now going to head into the next discussion on creative opportunities for performing arts. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ciao.